My name is David Schlundt, and welcome to the Science of Community Engagement. This is a video blog dedicated to providing information and resources to the scientific community on community-engaged research. It is brought to you by the Community Outreach Core of the Meharry Vanderbilt Tennessee State Cancer Partnership. Hi, what I want to talk about today is how to develop questions, interviews, and focus group guides for qualitative research. I'm going to cover three issues: how to formulate the research questions, developing an interview or focus group guide, and then refining and testing your guide. Formulating a question is really not much different than any research study. You start with a literature review. What do we know? You think about who you might need to talk to, people who are experts in the field. What theoretical framework should I use? What is the general problem or area of interest? And then begin to sort of write a statement of background and context that ends up with sort of specific questions that you'd like to answer with the research study. Thinking about the populations, the problems, the time frames, what important attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors you want people to talk to you about, and the social and cultural context, if that's important. Developing your questions. A good qualitative question should provide answers that you need for your project. They should evoke conversation. They should be short and clear. Open-ended questions are the best. You want to ask questions in a way that are non-threatening to people. You want to focus on thoughts, perceptions, emotions, or behaviors. And you'd like the whole series of questions to flow logically. Often you'll begin with an introductory question, something that's easy to talk about, that will sort of encourage conversation and get it going. Then you'll transition to questions that are more focused on your research agenda, sort of moving into the depth of the questions. Typically, you would want 2 to 5 questions that really get at the purpose of the study. This means they need to be sort of big, broad invitations to speak type of questions. At the end, you'll want to bring it back, give a summary, and then perhaps invite people to tell you anything else that they think is important. In developing the questions, you want to be ready with probes. Probes is a facilitation tool that will encourage more discussion or sort of prompt people to go into a deeper discussion or to continue talking about a particular theme. So, for example, these might be overall questions that you would look at. Women from minority communities tend to gain too much weight during pregnancy. Why? That's something that actually might lend itself very nicely to a focus group. Women who are pregnant and who share a particular ethnicity or cultural background can talk about things and in discussing it sort of stimulate thinking and get more conversation going. Understanding why children become picky eaters and how that might produce treatment strategies. There's a problem where you actually want to talk to the parents, most likely. And you could either use focus groups or interviews. What are the barriers to providing primary care to the uninsured? A question like that, I might actually want to do 2 sets of interviews, talking to uninsured individuals and talking to providers who provide primary care. Understanding why people experience long-term weight gain after bariatric surgery. There you would probably want to develop an interview, although you could easily do that again as a focus group. Get people who've had bariatric surgery, some time ago and just begin to ask them about their experiences, and then particularly focus on any experiences or reactions they had to weight gain. How do you do it? You want first to sort of focus on your overall research question. So the previous slide had some good examples of research questions. You would want to then brainstorm your discussion, organize them, categorize them, revise them, boil them down to sort of the most essential discussion topics, work on your wording to make it clear and simply worded. Again, trying to cast your questions in as open-ended a way as possible. Then for each of these sort of major questions, you'll develop a list of probes. Our experience in working with a lot of investigators and developing interview and focus group guides is that the first draft has too many questions that are too specific. It ends up looking more like a survey. And as we work with it, we sort of pull out the essential questions, we word them as invitations to speak, and then we can develop some probes that we might use during the interview or the focus group. So here's an example from focus groups that we did. We were interested in how people make food choices at work. And we ended up here with 5 questions. Describe your eating habits at work. What motivates you to buy food on campus? What is your #1 challenge to eating healthy at work? What influences your food choices at work? And how do you eat healthy at work on a budget? Here's an example from focus groups we did with staff in nursing homes around the problem of residents being placed on antipsychotic medications and how and why you might want to get them off of those medications. So one big question was, how do you see antipsychotic medications being used in your facility? So that would be the opening question in the focus group. And then as the discussion went on, we had a series of prompts. What kinds of patients end up being medicated? What kinds of behaviors or complaints lead to a prescription for an antipsychotic? How does the patient's behavior change after the medication? What happens when they're taken off? What are the long-term effects? And then what changes do you think need to be made in the way antipsychotic medications are used? That was the big question. And again, we were prepared with a series of prompts to keep the discussion going and make sure that the kind of details we were interested in came out during the focus group. Now, once you've got the guide developed, really recommend that you test it. You want to start with the research team, share what you've got with the team, ask for feedback, perhaps get together and sort of brainstorm on how the focus group or interview guide might be improved, boiling it down to sort of the key questions, what sub-questions should be moved to the prompts. You might ask 1 or 2 people outside of your research team who have expertise in the area to review and give you feedback. And it's often very useful to take 1 or 2 people who are like your target group and do a pilot interview. How long does it take? Did they understand the questions? Were people comfortable talking about it? What might be missing from your questions? And then once you've gone through those, kind of one last review by the research team, and you're very likely ready to begin collecting data with the focus group or interview guide. So to summarize, preparation is important. Literature review, experts, theory are all part of sort of getting ready to then create your research question and identify the method to use for data collection. Draft your questions and have the team members and experts review it. Pilot test your guide with a few people, revise it, and then you are ready to plan the other elements of your qualitative study.